Hello, my name's David Rawnsley. This is the third of 5 videos that share the mystical thoughts of some of our greatest scientists. As Nobel Prize recipients, they must also be recognized as the greatest scientists that mainstream science can muster. Possibly my favorite of all the scientists whose mystical thoughts I've discovered is Erwin Schrodinger. He was awarded his Nobel Prize in 1933, the year after Heisenberg. In the early 1940s, Schrodinger wrote a book entitled What is Life? It was primarily a book about biology. The epilogue drew on Eastern religious ideas and contained comments that he accepted could be considered blasphemous. Indeed, his publisher, when he was in Ireland, considered them exactly that and ordered them to be removed. Schrodinger refused, and it wasn't until 1944 that it was published, with the epilogue, by Cambridge University Press, after Schrodinger took up a position at Cambridge University. I'll let you be the judge of whether this beautiful piece of literature is blasphemous. Schrodinger begins by rewarding himself for being a good guy in writing the book, and then dives right in. As a reward for the serious trouble I have taken to expound the purely scientific aspects of the problem, what is life? I beg leave to add my own, necessarily subjective, view of its philosophical implications. According to the evidence put forward in the preceding pages, the space-time events in the body of a living being which correspond to the activity of its mind, to its self-conscious or any other action, are, considering also their complex structure and accepting statistical explanations of physicochemistry, if not strictly deterministic, at any rate statistico-deterministic. To the physicist, I wish to emphasize that in my opinion, and contrary to the opinion held in some quarters, quantum indeterminacy plays no biologically relevant role in them, except perhaps by enhancing their purely accidental character in such events as meiosis, natural and X-ray induced mutation, and so on. And this is, in any case, obvious and well recognized. For the sake of argument, let me regard this as a fact, as I believe every unbiased biologist would, if there were not the well-known unpleasant feeling about declaring oneself to be a pure mechanism, for it is deemed to contradict free will as warranted by direct introspection. But immediate experiences in themselves, however various and disparate they are logically incapable of contradicting each other. So let us see whether we cannot draw the correct, non-contradictory conclusion from the following 2 premises. 1. My body functions as a pure mechanism according to the laws of nature. 2. Yet I know, by incontrovertible direct experience, that I am directing its motions, of which I foresee the effects that may be fateful and all important, in which case I feel and take full responsibility for them. The only possible inference from these 2 facts is, I think, that I in the widest meaning of the word, that is to say, every conscious mind that has ever said or felt I am the person, if any, who controls the motion of the atoms according to the laws of nature. Within a cultural milieu where certain conceptions, which once had or still have a wider meaning amongst other peoples, have been limited and specialized, it is daring to give to this conclusion the simple wording that it requires. In Christian terminology, to say, "Hence, I am God Almighty," sounds both blasphemous and lunatic. But please disregard these connotations for the moment and consider whether the above inference is not the closest a biologist can get to proving God and immortality at one stroke. In itself, the insight is not new. The earliest records, to my knowledge, date back some 2,500 years or more, from the early great Upanishads, the recognition that Atman equals Brahman, the personal self equals the omnipresent, all-comprehending, eternal self. It was in Indian thought considered far from blasphemous to represent the quintessence of deepest insight into the happenings of the world. The striving of all the scholars of Vedanta was, after having learnt to pronounce with their lips, really to assimilate in their minds this grandest of thoughts. Again, the mystics of many centuries, independently yet in perfect harmony with each other, somewhat like the particles in an ideal gas, have described each of them the unique experience of his or her life in terms that can be condensed in the phrase Deus factum sum. I have become God. To Western ideology, the thought has remained a stranger, in spite of Schopenhauer and others who stood for it, and in spite of those true lovers who, as they look into each other's eyes, become aware that their thought and their joy are numerically one, not merely singular or identical, but they, as a rule, are emotionally too busy to indulge in clear thinking, in which respect they very much resemble the mystic. Allow me a few further comments. Consciousness is never experienced in the plural, only in the singular. Even in the pathological cases of split consciousness or double personality, the two persons alternate. They are never manifest simultaneously. In a dream, we do perform several characters at the same time, but not indiscriminately. We are one of them. In him we act and speak directly, while we often eagerly await the answer or response of another person, unaware of the fact that it is we who control his movements and his speech just as much as our own. How does this idea of plurality, so emphatically opposed by the Upanishad writers, arise at all? Consciousness finds itself intimately connected with and dependent on the physical state of a limited region of matter, the body. Consider the changes of mind during the development of the body. At puberty, aging, dotage, for example, or consider the effect of fever, intoxication, narcosis, lesion of the brain, and so on. Now, there is a great plurality of similar bodies. Hence the pluralization of consciousnesses or minds seem a very suggestive hypothesis. Probably all simple ingenious people, as well as the great majority of Western philosophers, have accepted it. It leads almost immediately to the invention of souls, as many as there are bodies, and to the question whether they are mortal as the body is, or whether they are immortal and capable of existing by themselves. The former alternative is distasteful, while the latter frankly forgets, ignores or disowns the facts upon which the plurality hypothesis rests. Much sillier questions have been asked. Do animals have souls? It has even been questioned whether women or only men have souls. Are we not inclining to greater nonsense if in discarding their gross superstitions we retain their naive idea of plurality of souls, but remedy this by declaring the soul to be perishable, to be annihilated with the respective bodies? The only possible alternative is simply to keep the immediate experience that consciousness is a singular of which the plural is unknown, that there is only one thing, and that what seems to be a plurality is merely a series of different aspects of this one thing, produced by a deception, the Indian Maya. The same illusion is produced in a gallery of mirrors, and in the same way Gaurishanker and Mount Everest turned out to be the same peak seen from different valleys. Yet each of us has the indisputable impression that the sum total of his own experience and memory forms a unit, quite distinct from that of another person. He refers to it as I. What is this I? If you analyze it closely, you will, I think, find that it is just a little bit more than a collection of single data, experiences and memories, namely the canvas upon which they are collected. And you will, on close introspection, find that what you really mean by I is the ground stuff upon which they are collected. You may come to a distant country, lose sight of all your friends, may all but forget them. You acquire new friends. You share life with them as intensely as you ever did your old ones. Less and less important will become the fact that, while living your new life, you still recollect the old one. The youth that was I, you may come to speak of him in the third person. Indeed, the protagonist of the novel you are reading is probably nearer to your heart, certainly more intensely alive and better known to you. Yet there has been no intermediate break, no death. And even if a skilled hypnotist succeeded in blotting out entirely all your earlier reminiscences, you would not find that he had killed you. In no case is there a loss of personal existence to deplore, nor will there ever be. Thank you, Mr. Schrodinger.